My name is Sean Deering. I'm a field specialist in livestock with University of Missouri Extension. And today we're at the Hundley-Whaley Research Center in Albany. And we are starting a project here that kind of focuses around native warm season grasses. And just going to give you a little bit of a highlight of what we're trying to accomplish here. Standing in front of a native plot that's been here for a number of years, and you can see that it's pretty rank and pretty mature and has a lot of old growth in it. Especially you can see the trees that have come up in it in the background. We, in northwest Missouri, I think the native warm season grasses have probably gotten a little bit of a negative stigma to them, mainly because of this right here. Years ago, a lot of CRP ground was planted into this, and it was just kind of let go. It wasn't really managed, and then when we had a disaster declaration and this could be used for forage, it was harvested past its prime, and the forage that we took off of it wasn't really very high quality, and animals kind of refused it and things like that. So there was a little negativity concerning this stuff. I think with the drought that we experienced in 2018, beef producers in the area are looking at things that could kind of help them get through some dry periods. And to be honest with you, every year from July to August, we kind of have a miniature drought, if you will, even in a good year. The interesting thing about this stuff is that it is warm season and it likes the hot, warm weather. Now, the alleyways between these two plots are cool season Kentucky 31 tall fescue. And we have actually been blessed with a pretty abundant amount of rain in the past couple weeks. A week ago, these alleyways were really brown, dried up, and really just kind of showed this stuff going through the summer slump or the dormancy period that we face here in northwest Missouri.
Hello, I'm Jim Humphrey. I'm a field specialist in livestock with the University of Missouri Extension. I'm based out of Savannah, Missouri. These native warm season plants are very deep rooted. So the first year we seed these, we don't see much top growth, but these plants are putting a lot of effort into developing their roots for long-term sustainability. Additionally, these plants do an excellent job of helping minimize soil erosion. So they are very environmentally friendly, and they can help us again sustain our way of life here in rural northwest Missouri. I have some of the plants here. These are some that we picked up down at some of the plots here on Hundley-Whaley. The one that I'm shaking here is round-headed Lespedeza. Again, you can see there's a lot of leaf area on this plant. It's doing very well this time of year. This other one I have here is partridge pea. It has a yellow flower on it. This is the only annual of the 10 species that we planted, meaning it has to be reseeded each year by itself, or you have to reseed it. Everything else is a perennial, meaning that it will come back on its own each year. Additionally, you can see here, this plant I'm showing now is switchgrass. These are some of the younger plants. Again, there's some really good quality forage here that we can provide for our livestock. Again, we're doing this video in late July, so we're starting to see the summer slump with our cool season grasses. Again, these warm season grasses are really thriving. The plant that I'm holding up now is big blue stem. Again, we harvested it. You can see how lush and tender the blades are on this. Again, the animals love these warm season grasses during this time of year. They're in a very vegetative state and can get really good performance out of it.
Now if we can, we're going to move over here to this other plot. This plot looked exactly like that one, and the only difference in this one is that we actually used a prescribed burn, and we burned this in April. And if you'll notice, you can look, this was burned completely to the ground. You can kind of look at this growth that we've gotten just, during this summer time period.
Hello, my name is Andy Luke, and I'm a field specialist in agronomy with the University of Missouri Extension. A lot of farmers, they ask questions about native warm season grasses because it's something that they're really not too familiar with. They are a great addition into a grazing system or into a haying system for farmers, just because the growth cycle of these is going to be different than it is for our cool season grasses that we typically have in the area. So one of the main things that is different is fertility. Now, when talking about this plot here, this is one that has not been fertilized in several years. It's been many years since it's had anything. And you can see it's got a good amount of growth behind me. That's because these native warm season grasses, we've had these in these areas for hundreds of years. And so they have adapted well to our environment, and on low fertility soils, they do very well. Now, that's not to say that with higher levels of fertility that they won't respond to that, because they will. So when talking about fertility for native warm season grasses, phosphorus and potassium, they're going to be very similar to the cool season grasses. We need those soil test levels to be fairly similar to what the cool season grasses, what we expect out of those. That's going to help us get good stand establishment, have good seedling vigor, and as well as our drought resistance for those. The timing on that can be early in the spring. We want to get it to where it's going to really help that stand get started off in the same, or in a good spot throughout the year. Now, when talking about nitrogen, that's one that's going to be very different than what we normally expect with our cool season grasses. So warm season grasses, they like temperatures that are about 85 degrees during the day. And so they're not really going to start growing until nighttime temperatures stay in that 60-degree range for several consecutive days. Because of this, we want to hold off on our nitrogen applications until about the early to middle part of May. This is generally when the weather starts to warm up, and so if we apply our nitrogen at this time, it's going to do very well for our warm season grasses. If we have too early of a timing for our nitrogen, that's going to promote any of the cool season grasses that are in that stand, or if there are no cool season grasses, weeds are going to take that nitrogen, take it up, and it's going to help choke out the warm season grasses. So in order to keep a good stand of warm season grasses for a long period of time, you want to keep that nitrogen application into a later time than normal, and maybe in that May time period. As far as rates, anywhere from about 60 to 100 pounds of nitrogen is going to do a very good job for these warm season grasses. And again, we want to start that in that May time period. If you do anything above about 80 pounds of nitrogen to the acre, it's best to do it in a split application, with the first application coming in that early May, and then coming back with the rest of the nitrogen in about mid-July, so about 2 months separate. And so that's really going to help these warm season grasses grow and do very well for you.
What we're encouraging producers to think about is that, you know, we don't think that you need 100% of your forage base in a native warm season. Let's say that if maybe you had 20 or 30% of your pasture ground in some of these native warm seasons, it could be really beneficial at this time of the year. We could pull those cows off that dormant summer slump Kentucky 31 tall fescue, move them to something like this that's high quality. We wouldn't have the toxicity issues with the fescue. Animal performance would not suffer. Reproductive performance would not suffer. And we could rotate through this during this summer period, and would really it would really help, I think, our beef producers in the area.
Another management tactic that's going to be different with warm season grasses than with cool season grasses is the grazing height that's needed to be kept in order to keep a good vigorous stand. So with warm season grasses, if you're grazing cattle on there, you want to keep a grazing height of about 10 to 12 inches at the bottom of the plant. When talking about warm season grass plants, a great amount of energy is going to be stored in the lower part of their stems. And so you want to keep that intact, and so that the plant is able to regrow after the grazing is over. When talking about haying, we need to keep it to about 6 to 8 inches of our mowing height.
I'm here at Hundley-Whaley today with some native warm season grass and native warm season legume plots that we established this spring, March 6th of 2020. In 2019, these plots were and soybeans here at Hundley-Whaley. In these plots, we are trying to demonstrate the quality of forages that we can grow here in northwest Missouri, as well as the quality of legumes that we can grow. The grasses that we're growing, the native warm season grasses, are big blue stem, Indian grass, eastern gamma grass, and switchgrass. The native warm season legumes, or forbs, that we are growing are Illinois bundleflower, partridge pea, lead plant, purple prairie clover, Caneb purple prairie clover, which was developed out in Manhattan, Kansas, as well as round-headed Lespedeza. We have put these plots in as pure seeded plots, trying to see what the production can be of each of these species. We've had some local interest from producers asking questions, as also we want to do some forage quality testing on these plots to see how well the quality is on these different plants individually. We know livestock likes to graze them. That's why they were planted. And with the forage and livestock industry in Missouri being a $12 billion industry, it's very important to agriculture and to the rural way of life here in Missouri. Additionally, these grasses and legumes are native warm seasons, which by nature helps them provide a good volume of forages for the summertime when we see a summer slump in our fescue pastures. These native warm season grass and native warm season forb plots, again, were planted on March 6, 2020. The way they were planted, Jennifer used a discavator and ran across these plots once and lightly disked them up using the discavator. And then after that, I got a cattle panel and drug across them multiple times, trying to break up the clots. Then we hand broadcast the seeds onto the ground and then covered them up by dragging a cattle panel back across these plots probably 3 times over each plot. To get we wanted a very light amount of soil to cover these seeds. Again, one of the biggest challenges with planting native warm season grasses and native warm season legumes is we get the seed too deep. So we wanted that seed 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch deep. And when we were done, we saw probably about 20 to 30% of the seed still laying on top of the ground. And if you talk to people that grow native warm season grasses regularly, that is not a bad thing to have a percentage of the seed laying on top of the ground. It's better to do that than get it too deep. The ultimate goal of these demonstration plots is to show how we can extend the grazing season here in northwest Missouri.